So yeah, I got married like 3 months ago, and I kind of want to talk about it because you guys have been followers of me on this channel for a long time, and I talk about dating stuff all the time. And I'm sure some of you guys are wondering, but does Harry actually know what he's talking about? And as you can see, clearly things happen, so I must be doing something right. I'm Harry Wilmington, and so I kind of want to talk today about my pathway towards marriage, why I decided to get married. I also want to talk about what it was about her specifically that made me want to make that choice. I want to talk about why it is I waited so long to actually tell you guys that this was going on. I want to give you my true opinions about marriage and relationships, and I want to talk to you guys about what this means for this channel going forward with regards to the information that I'll be talking about on here. All right. So to start out, I don't want to give too many details about her in particular, because she is very much a private person. She does law stuff, so she will not be one of those women that is probably on this channel unless she changes her mind. That's not going to happen. But the short version of our story is that we actually met in college. It was my second senior year of college. For those of you that know my story, I failed at my first year because I was crushing on a friend of mine. It didn't work out. I took it some kind of way and didn't want to go to class, and so I had to stay a second year. And so in that second semester from like January to May is when we first met each other. And I met her at a party, and it's interesting to look back, like everything that I teach you guys in terms of how to actually attract women and how to get them out on dates is exactly what I did on her. Everything from like, I approached her, we talked a little bit, we ended up kissing on the couch, and at that point I was like, okay, it's time. This is the height of the enjoyment. It's time to leave, and I left. So it was really one of the first times that I was consciously aware of things I was doing, and she knows this, by the way. I have told her every single thing that I did to initially try to attract her and stuff like that, right? And so after that, we got back to classes, and she was like seeking me out, and we would sporadically go out here and there, and then inevitably we started doing some other fun stuff. And so, but I only had a semester left, and so at the age of 23, she had 2 more years to go, and I was gonna be out. And so I knew this was not the time to try to start a serious relationship with anybody, considering that I was gonna be going back to either live with my uncle or my mom. And so, yeah, but even though I left the school, we still kept in touch and in contact, right? So, cut to a year later where she's still in school, and I decided to move to Atlanta. So now I'm moving further away. And I was still just like, I don't do long distance relationships. I don't want to set up a situation where, like, if I move someplace else and then find somebody else, that I got to now lie to this person that's in another state. And also, we're still trying to figure ourselves out. I think I still had some growing to do. I think she still had some growth areas to do. And so we were friends on Facebook and kind of stayed in contact, but I went to Atlanta. I was grinding it out there. And then inevitably, I had some successes happen in the music area. And so I moved back to the DMV area, which is like DC, Virginia, whatever, for a time, for like 3 months. And at that point, she was now up in that area, and she was in law school. And so we reconnected, and again, we were going out, we were having a good time with each other. And then I got the opportunity to move to California. So this was in 2009. And at that point, she's now started law school. So she's got another 4 years in law school, and I got an opportunity to go to California. So once again, it's going to be long distance. And at that point in time, there was no inkling that in 4 years she'd be up and out and move to California. Now, she had expressed that she wouldn't necessarily mind moving to the West Coast, but again, I had to come out here. I had to set myself up. I had to figure out what I was going to do for money and to support myself. And also, again, 4 years is a long time. I didn't know if, like, in that 4 years, like, again, are other people going to come into play? I was never really a big believer in doing the whole long distance thing because traditionally, it does not work out all that great. And, we didn't have like social media we had Facebook and stuff, but not like phones back then. You could just regularly keep in touch. Anyway, so once again, I was like, hey, I'm moving to California, so this can't be a thing because I don't want to hold you up, and I don't want to, again, have to go out there and lie and be like, oh, I'm seeing nobody. Then it's like totally happening, right? So we still stayed in touch. So eventually she graduated. She came out here to visit me for a little bit, for like a week or so. And at the time, I was just getting my bearings. Like, this was like 4 years after I moved to California, where I was just now starting, like, I finally got my own apartment. I finally had gotten a car because I was without a car for like 6 years. And so she came out and visited. And at the time, I was going through some stuff. And so even though we had a good time, I was just like, I'm still feeling weird about just my life in general. And so I didn't want to make any kind of commitments. And again, she had stuff going on the East Coast. So it was just kind of like, this was a cool visit, but like, I'm going to hold you to that. You're going to go back out there. I'm going to go back out here and just keep doing our thing. So by 2020, I had a lot of decent dating experiences, and I was, again, a lot of stuff I teach you guys is stuff that has worked on other women, and I've dated some really great women. But clearly those situations didn't work out for various reasons. Sometimes things start off great and then either clashes come in the way, or like one girl I dated, she swore up and down that she didn't necessarily need to have kids because I never wanted kids. And then kind of find out later on, she kind of had the desire to have kids. So as much as I liked her, it wasn't going to work out. So by 2020, I really started thinking about, man, like this girl I met in college, she seemed pretty great. The entire time that I've known her, she's had great temperament, and we never had like any major blowout fights or arguments. She always just had a really like chipper demeanor. She was just very giving and kind for people. She came from a 2-parent household. Her daddy was a pastor, and she admired her dad greatly. So again, we have a woman that came from a 2-parent, had great admiration for her dad. That's always a great sign. And some of the women I dated, they were great, but they didn't necessarily have that. And so sometimes arguments would arise where maybe they didn't want to listen to my point of view, or they didn't know how men thought about stuff and they thought I was weird, whatever. So anyway, I went home in 2020 to visit in February of 2020 to visit my niece for her birthday. And I just kind of hit her up like, hey, you're in DC still? We should just reconnect and go out and see what's what. And so we went out to a sushi restaurant and we had a meal. And when she walked in the door, I was just like, oh, she still looks good. She's still nice, and we had a good meal, and she was still just her chipper, regular self that she'd been back in college. And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe when I come back to the East Coast, since my family's out here, I'll just sporadically visit her, and we'll just kind of see where that vibe goes. Like it doesn't have to be we're dating each other right now, but like we could just kind of feel out what's going on. I could see if maybe she'd be open at some point to maybe moving to the West Coast. Like I don't know if she still has that desire. And that was February of 2020, and we all know what happened in March of 2020. So needless to say, at the time that happened, I didn't know if I'd ever see anybody again because my family's on the East Coast, lockdowns, can't fly anywhere. And so I was just kind of like, well, maybe this isn't meant to happen. So I was just in California, like, all right, well, I can't do anything now. So it's like, let's see who's out here. And so it was another like 2 years that I was out here dating. And at the point that things opened up, it was now 2022. And I'd been in a relationship, and I just was starting to feel like, you know what, maybe this isn't really the situation for me. And I'm still wondering about the girl I went to college with. So I said, you know what, like at the point that situation ended, I said, you know what, okay, I'll reach out. I'll see if she wants to come out here and visit again, and we'll just see what's what. And so I flew her out in May of 2022, and we had spent a week together and just had a ball. And it just really just felt like this is like the person that's supposed to be around. And so again, I did not bring this up. She brought up casually, like, hey, I'd still be down to moving out here and whatever. Just she had like an 8-month assignment that she was on for a particular thing she was doing that I don't want to get into. But so I was like, okay, well, I mean, we'll see at the end of the 8 months. But in the meantime, hey, if I'm on the East Coast, I'll meet up and visit, whatever. And so she said, cool. So for the next, again, this is like me not trying to necessarily have a long distance relationship, right? But she ended up like getting tickets to come out here to see me. And then I'd go to the East Coast to visit my family. I'd go see her. We went on some road trips together. We did one trip to Canada to see Mariah Carey for like a Christmas concert. Like we were diligently making plans to see each other. I was going out to see her. She was coming out to see me. Like every month I saw her from the time that I flew her out here to when she finally moved out here. We were just seeing each other. And so, yeah, the next year, April 2023, I flew out to her. We packed her up in a car, and we drove out to West Coast, and she moved out here. And so per my thing of like, I didn't want to live with anybody before we got married. I found an apartment that was in the same complex as where I was living. So we were able to still live separately, but see each other like every day, And so, yeah, even though when she moved out here, I kind of knew already that I wanted to marry her. I still knew, per what I teach you guys, that I needed at least 2 years of us being in the same city and being able to really date each other and see each other every day in order to, before I went anywhere near the engagement steps, right? And so, yeah, she moved out here, and we dated for 2.5 years. and I got to see her, in her best, and I got to see her when, in the morning with crinkly eyes and stuff, and all that stuff. And in the entire 2.5 years, it's been like the best thing. Like, again, she's always been a person that she's never been really argumentative. And people hear that and think like, well, she must be a pushover. No, no, no. She knows how to express what she's thinking or feeling, whether it's something that agrees with me or not, in a way that still doesn't make me feel like she's being combative. It's just a matter of fact, oh, this is my thought about this. And it's like, oh, it is. And it's like, we've just always had a good vibe to each other. We've always had a good time. I never understood people that said like, in a relationship, you guys have to fight because it's just part of a relationship. Because like, again, we have discussions, but we don't have yell, knockout, drag out fights. I'm able to express if something she did, like, maybe I took it the wrong way or it upset me, and without her taking it personally, and vice versa. Like, and again, this is all the stuff I tell you guys to look for, And so, yeah, so I proposed to her last November. I proposed to her last November. We went on a trip to Bali with some other friends of mine, and just the last day, or the second to last day, I proposed to her, and I was not nervous. I didn't have any second thoughts. I just knew this was the person I was supposed to be with, And so, yeah, 6 months later, we got married in June of 2025, and that's basically the very, very short version of that story. So I always tell you guys, like, all women are the same in that they all think that they're different. And so I don't want to come in here and be a hypocrite and say like, well, she's completely different from all the other girls. Because reality is there are women out there that also are even tempered. There are other women out there that also do things like cook and, want to do wifey stuff at home. So I'll just tell you what I personally like about this particular woman. For one, like I said, she's always had an even temperament. We're always able to sit down and talk about stuff and hear each other out. And there's never, ever been any kind of tension. She's never been one of those that like got mad at me and didn't talk to me for like 4 or 5 days. And that's something I had to work on because I've gotten much better at that. But there'll still be some times where like I might just be in my feelings and just be kind of like, well, I'll talk to her, but I'm not going to like initiate the conversation. That's a me thing. It's always been a me thing, but I've gotten way better than I was when I was a kid. Secondly, she's very, very flexible. For those of you that aren't aware, my best friend recently just passed away like 2 weeks ago. And so there's been a lot of having to be there for me, and also being flexible when it's like, hey, like I want to go hang out with his family at the house. Is it okay if I go? And she's like, oh yeah, sure. No, whatever. No problem. Do what you got to do. Like there's been times where I needed my alone time, and she's just been like, hey, you need to do your alone time. I'm going to go to work today. So you can just, walk around the house and grieve and do what you got to do. And it's just been it really shows you that picking the type of person that you pick for your spouse really does matter, because there's a difference between somebody who's going to be all in their feels and take everything personally, and somebody that's like, hey, you do what you got to do for you. I'm not going to take it any kind of way, and I know this is the way that I can help you, so I'm going to do that, and she's always been very much that person. Also, she knows that I'm a dating coach and is cool with it. I've had women in the past that, again, some of these women were great women, but at the point that they heard that I was a dating coach, they would start to think that things I was saying to them or doing to them was to manipulate them into feeling things. And it's like, the stuff I teach you guys, the point isn't to manipulate women. The point is to get out of your own way so women can come to their own conclusions about how they feel about you. But at the point that some of these women discovered I was a dating coach, I would tell them, this is what I do. I do a podcast, I do a show. They would suddenly think that like the things I was saying or doing was to try to trick them. Or they'd say stuff like, say we were in a disagreement or something like that. They'd be like, well, but you're a dating coach. You should know how to do X, Y, and Z, or you should know about blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, why are you using what I do against me? And this woman has never done that. She barely brings up that I even do a show. She knows that I do one. She actually will leave the house at times when I need to record stuff just so she can get out of my way. Like, because she respects it that much. Even if it's like, whether this channel ends up being hella successful or not, she's like, but that's what you'd like to do. That's your message. And so I'm going to go out of the house. And I've always greatly appreciated that. Other thing interesting is that she actually agrees with Kevin Samuels' stuff. When we reconnected, I asked her if she knew who Kevin Samuels was, and she said she did not. And I was like, all right, so good or bad or ugly. One of the things that my now deceased friend taught me is like in his last relationship, to which I helped him meet this woman, and then they ended up getting married, by the way, is that he was completely open with like everything, his dating history, stuff he was going through, any things that he had going on that maybe she wouldn't like, but he'd go, and he was just always very open and honest. And there were times in the past with women where I was not like that because I was afraid of like, if I say a thing and then upset them, then it's going to cause some turmoil and I don't want turmoil. So I'm just going to whatever. And so with her, I was like, I need to be completely 100% honest with everything that I like, everything that I do. And so, yeah, I said, hey, well, you haven't heard of Kevin Samuels. I definitely need to show you some of his stuff because I'm probably going to be watching from time to time. And so I showed her a bunch of Kevin Samuels videos and her response was, why are other women tripping? Because I told her, I said, when he was live, it was very contentious because a lot of women disagreed with what he said. And she was like, but everything he says is common sense. Like, this is stuff my dad would have said. I was like, that's what I thought, but people thought I was crazy. At least the women thought I was crazy for like liking this stuff and thinking that he was like the devil and all that stuff. And it's like, no, he's just saying common sense stuff. Like, yeah, if a woman wants this kind of man, why would she think that she could get one being this kind of woman? Like, mind blown. So yeah, we've had several sessions where we sat there and listened to her watch Kevin Samuels together. Much like my deceased friend, she was like, I don't necessarily like his tone because she's not a contentious person, so she doesn't watch a lot of contentious media like that except for football. But she was like, but what he's actually saying, I totally agree with. So, those things let me know that I could definitely see myself with this one long term. Now, if another one had come along and done the same stuff, because I don't believe in like the finding the one theory. I think there are a bunch of people out there that could work for us, and we just got to find one of them that works out and choose one. And I was, in hindsight, fortunate enough that I happened to meet that girl in college, but yeah, she's that person. And so for me, as a person that doesn't like a lot of drama and I like to keep things like even keel and low pressured, she is like the perfect match for me in terms of that stuff. And so I had no problem at all. Like, I wasn't nervous when I asked her to marry me. I wasn't nervous on the day that we got married. People kept asking me, like, how do you feel? Do you feel nervous? I was like, no, like, I knew this is the person. This is why I'm not nervous about that, because I waited long enough and I vetted her long enough to kind of know this is who I wanted to be with. Anyway, so why did I wait so long to tell you all this? Well, here's the reality, and this is probably part of my bias, right? Is that the gurus that I followed in the past, they took one of two paths. Somebody like Doc Love, for example, he never told anybody that he actually had anybody. He just gave some dating advice, and you listen to it. And then when he died, you kind of find out, oh, he actually was married and had a whole family, But the other side is there have been other dating gurus that gave out advice, and then they got married, and then they showed their spouses, and some of them looked like, oh, okay, cool. And other ones, I was just kind of like, that would not have been somebody I got with, And so it's not that it necessarily changed my viewpoint of their advice, but I could see how, seeing pictures of the person's spouse or whatever could make a person feel tainted if like that's not the kind of person you would be attracted to, And so I thought about that. I thought about like, if I ever show a picture of her, if I put her on here, this is that, then they judge her. Are they going to be, because like, again, I think she's immensely beautiful. I've always loved the way she looks, but I'm aware of how the world can be with regards to judging people. Because again, there are some gurus out there who marry people that they feel is like a 10. And I'm like, they're like a 5 at best. And so I didn't know if that would then hinder any advice that I gave you guys, because ultimately we're all on our own journey with like who we find attractive and who we want to be with, And so, and I thought about that because it's like, now it's like, now that I'm married, is the advice that I'm giving going to be out of date, or a guy's going to be like, well, he's married now, so he doesn't know what it's like out here, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. And here's my honest thought about that too, is that people think that at the point you get married, that dating advice no longer applies, but it's like, it actually applies more, because most men end up losing their women because they stop dating their wives. And so you have to continue to date. I still continue to take her out like once a week to something, whether it's bowling, whether it's a restaurant of some kind, whether it's a play. Like I'm still on my toes even more so now about making sure that part doesn't die, because how you attract a woman and how you get a woman to a long-term relationship is the same things you need to keep on doing in order to keep her, And so I think it's actually more valid for guys that are married to hear dating advice. And a lot of the stuff that I teach you guys is stuff that continues to not go out of style. Like the stuff I learned when I was going through this was from Doc Love, which was back in the early 2000s, right? And he was an old man at that time. And 25 years later, I find all the stuff that he talked about with regards to like how women take things and their emotional stability and, how it is that guys turn them off, that stuff still applies. Like he didn't really have the whole texting thing back in the day, but at some point texting came into play and he was like, you shouldn't be texting girl all that much. This was like 2009, 2010, right? And so texting a lot still continues to be a way that guys lose women. So if I'm telling you guys that 5 years from now, that doesn't change that, because in that example, like a woman hearing from you all the time can cause her to lose interest. So I say that to say that, those are some of the worries that I had about telling you guys that I got married. But ultimately, like I said, my best friend passed, and he was very out and open about who he was marrying and how much he loved her and all this other stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I think it might be for the betterment of my message that I'm able to tell you guys that I'm married, because then it gives proof of concept to the things that I talk about. Because again, everything that I teach you guys on here is stuff that's gotten my friend married. It's stuff that's gotten me married. And to be honest with you, the other part too is that because people say like, well, you got married, but there's a lot of gurus on this platform in particular that really talk about like how marriage is a sham, and how guys get taken to court and lose all their money, and so it's not a good idea. And so my thoughts about marriage have always been everything those people say is absolutely true. I like your Greg Adamses, your Better Bachelors, like all those guys that like ran through the ringer in divorces and stuff. Like that stuff still can happen. I think any guy that's going into marriage is going to take that risk. Like as much as I love the person that I'm with and I feel as though it should last a long time, I have to go into it knowing that the reality is if it doesn't, I'm getting taken through the ringer. That's just bottom line. That is always a possibility that is out there, That said, I come from a family that's had a long line of successful marriages. My mom was successfully married. My brother's been successfully married now for almost 16 years. I have various aunts and uncles. I have friends that have gotten married these last few years that have had successful marriages. And so even though I'm very, very aware of the negatives that can come with marriage and the after effects if it does not work out. And I saw all that, and I know all the data, and I still said, at the end of the day, for me, I know I'm willing to take that risk, and I hope it goes great. And that's all I can do, is I can do my part on a daily basis to make sure that she's happy, and she's doing her part to make sure that I'm happy. But also, if it goes haywire, then I know doing this, that's what I'm signing up for. And that's the thing as a guy, is that you have to look at all the things that are out there and say, at the end of the day, am I willing to take on the responsibility of this thing that I'm going to do, regardless of the consequences? Like I have to know going into a marriage that I'm willing to take on the responsibility of doing my best to make it a happy one, and that if it goes south, I have to take on the responsibility of what's going to come with that. And that's just the risk you take as a guy. And so every guy out there is going to be different. Some guys are going to be like, I just want a long-term relationship and don't ever want to get married and have paperwork. And if that is you, that is totally fine. That is your decision as a man to make. The decision I chose to make was, I love this woman enough, and I've known her for long enough to know that I'm pretty sure it's going to work out great. And even with that, I know, but if it doesn't, you just take that on, for better or for worse. That's what you say in the things, right? Lastly, so me getting married, what does that mean for this channel? Does it mean I'm going to now start giving marriage advice? Well, the short answer is currently no, because I have only been married 3 months. And I hate when people like get married and suddenly they become marriage experts. Like, blah, blah, blah. Again, the reality is marriage is long-term dating. Like, I mean, there's extra stuff that comes with it, but it's like ultimately that's what you're doing, is that you're saying, I'm going to show up for this person day in and day out for the rest of my life. And so to that end, part of that means you got to keep dating your wife. And that also means that the dating advice I'm giving to guys is going to work whether they're married or not. But at the end of the day, I know that I have more experience in the dating realm currently than a marriage one. I think as I'm going through my marriage, if stuff pops up that I think could be helpful, or things that I've noticed that maybe like got a good reaction or made her happy about something, that I'll mention that. But at the end of the day, the goal is to get guys good in terms of how to show up in their dating lives and also in their relationships, whether those relationships are long-term or marriages or whatever, right? And so to that end, my advice is pretty much going to continue to be the same. I'll continue to answer your guys' questions as you write them into me. I'm always constantly researching topics that I think are interesting for you guys to listen to, and that stuff's going to be the same. And if you guys happen to have any questions about, hey, so now that you're married, here, have you considered blah, 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 blah? Have you thought about this? Or like, what things should I be looking for in this and that? Then I'm happy to answer those questions. But for right now, I am not a marriage guru. I've always called myself a relationship observationalist, meaning like, it's not that I was necessarily trying to be a coach. It just meant that I observe a lot of stuff about relationships, and I like to tell them to you in case you have not observed them yourself. So to that end, the observing of relationships, be they marriage or not, is not going to change, you know? But I just wanted to let you guys know that that happened, and it's been 3 months. I've been immensely happy, minus like, you know, again, my friend dying, that part sucked, but like having my wife, as I've gone through that, has been really helpful and great. And yeah, it really does make a difference. Like, look I'm at right now. I'm in a house right now, but like prior to 3 months ago, I was in an apartment. And so this is also a lesson this is the one lesson I will give, right? Is that when you marry somebody, like, make sure that they are an asset to your life and not a liability. You know, me being with her, it's only up to my opportunities and it's up to my abilities to where I can move and do whatnot. So me being on a solo income apartment, me being with somebody with a dual income, we get a house. So that's just one example of how important it is, because you marry the wrong person, trust me, you could end up in a trash heap. You could have your reputation ruined. You could have a spouse that is nitpicking you every day to where you start getting lower self-esteem. And so this is why, again, it's important for you to make sure that you're duly vetting the person. Like, because I've known her since college, I've technically been kind of on and off vetting her for like 20 years. So I kind of have a good idea of like how she's going to be. But don't take 20 years. Like really do it in like 3 or 5 years, but just always be observant. Don't be blinded by sex or how hot they are. Like, really look into, okay, like what kind of things are they talking about for the future? What kind of things are they doing now? How do they talk about their families? Because all that stuff is going to matter even more so when you're trying to bring y'all's families together. So that's all I really got to say about that. So thank you guys for watching this channel. Continue to watch this channel. If you have any questions you want to ask me, you can write to me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. And yeah, I will catch you guys on the next video. I'm out. Peace.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in to Harry Dating Convos. Don't forget to visit HarryWilmington.com to download my free ebook, Texting Women Like a Boss. And while you're there, if you're ready to take things to the next level with your dating life, check out the Get Girls Academy membership program for exclusive strategies and live coaching. Go to HarryWilmington.com to learn more and join today. Lastly, if you've got a question you'd like answered on one of these shows, leave a comment below or write me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.